Hey, it's Emily with a quick forward before we start today's Puzzle People pod. Today's episode involves domestic violence and an abusive relationship. This is one of my favorite episodes, and there's a lot of fun things to discuss, but if that's something that may trigger you, best skip this one. And if you are currently feeling stuck in an abusive relationship, please know that there are resources to help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and the number is 1-800-799-SAFE. You can also chat with someone live at thehotline.org. Now, on to the episode. Welcome to the Puzzle People pod. I'm here today with Jessa, who many of you may know from the speed puzzling scene and her Instagram where she goes by Jigsaw Jessa. Our conversation today is on reconnecting with your inner child and finding joy through puzzling. And if that's not enough of a reason to stick around, our featured Puzzler of the Week has a tip or two for those looking to improve their time when speed puzzling. But for now, welcome, Jessa.
I'm happy to be here.
So I think we unofficially kind of met at Nationals. I saw you all over my footage, so I was like wearing a really unflattering blue penny. But I was curious to hear how it was from you, and how serious would you say you are as a speed puzzle competitor?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I started practicing at home towards the end of last year. Nationals was my first in-person speed puzzling event, and so it was very nerve-wracking for me to be there and then be amongst all of the top speed puzzlers in the nation. Um, but I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it while I was there. It's contagious, like being around other speed puzzlers and seeing the joy, talking about puzzles, and then the lighting and the pressure, the cameras everywhere. That was all new to me. And so I didn't know how I was going to do, but I was really proud of myself for getting fourth in that round. But I also did pairs and teams, and that's more my jive. I like teaming up with other people and having someone to talk to. And so that was my first experience. I think overall, the best part of it was meeting everybody in the puzzle community. And then I knew I was like, okay, I'm going to keep trying speed puzzling, but I'm not sure individuals is for me just because I'm all alone in my thoughts and my mental health is struggling through these. And so I don't know if it's the best for me to put that pressure on myself. But I went to regionals as well here in Washington. And that kind of changed everything for me, just knowing that I can push through the mental part of it and compete in individuals. It may not be my favorite, but it's not terrible. Like I actually enjoyed it. So I think I'll progress from here and hopefully enjoy it more.
I know you have a pretty established Instagram. You have quite a following, and I'm curious if your Instagram is about, speed puzzling, or if it's more just sort of like general puzzle joy.
Yeah. So I started Instagram about a year and a half ago. I actually made a joke about it on my personal Instagram because I was doing a really difficult puzzle at the time during Christmas break. And I was like, I should document this on a separate account so you guys aren't all annoyed by my puzzle posts. And then I was like, who has time for that? And then shortly after that, I was like, okay, maybe I want to start nerding out on puzzles more and sharing that. And so I opened up the account just to share the puzzles that I've done, like journal for myself. I had no idea about the puzzle community. I had no idea about all the amazing puzzle brands that are out there. And so when I joined, I immediately started, following people and they were following me. And I just learned so much within that. So it actually just became something I had no idea it would become. I started making my reels and doing more fun things just because I was inspired and wanted to be silly. And so that's really where it started, was just the joy of puzzling and wanting to share that with others. But then through that, I met many people who beat puzzle. And so I watched the Worlds recap from Karen, and then I watched Nationals from 2022. And I secretly was like, oh, that would be so fun to do. But I still was very hesitant about trying it myself. But I think, once you see it enough, you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll give it a try. And so that's what happened towards the end of last year. So I would say it's kind of merged into speed puzzling, but the base of my account is for sharing the love of puzzles and new brands. And yeah.
Something that I've been asking everybody is what kind of advice would you give someone who's speed puzzle curious? Because speaking from somebody who doesn't speed puzzle, as in myself, it looks really intimidating to come into. So, what's a tip that you would give someone who's maybe curious but is a little nervous about entering the speed puzzle scene?
Yeah, I would say to start small, to not start with a big puzzle. Even a 500 piece can feel overwhelming for your first time speed puzzling. I would take a 100-piece puzzle. I have one here that I'm working on from workshop that is, they're called snack size, and a 100-piece you can do in about 10 minutes. And so I would just start with that and just practice a lot, practice flipping over the pieces, pouring it out of the bag or the box, and seeing if you can get your flip to be faster and using both hands. Um, but yeah, once you feel comfortable doing 100, then go to a 200, and then go to a 500. I've only done 1,000 maybe a couple of times, and it's daunting. It's a lot to push through a 1,000-piece puzzle and keep up that stamina. But it also, after doing that, it makes the 500 seem so much more manageable. It's like, oh, okay, I can do a 500. So mix it up. But yeah, I would just encourage people to start small. Um, that way it's not too daunting.
I think that's a great piece of advice. You let's go back in time a little bit. When we first spoke, you had mentioned that you're somebody who has been puzzling their whole life. So, can you talk a little bit about when did you first start puzzling, and what was your connection to it? Like, when did you fall in love with it?
I have been puzzling ever since I can remember. I think as soon as I could get my hands on puzzle pieces and put them together, we had cardboard puzzles in our home. They weren't exciting by any means, but like the photography of mountains and boats, sailboats on the water. Um, so I don't know if I was drawn to it because of the illustrations or the picture, but I loved the challenge of trying to find what piece I could put in. And my family called me the puzzle queen as a young girl, which I loved. But I think what I remember and cherish the most is our Christmas and like family time with my grandparents, because they always had a puzzle out at the table at their house, and I would sit there with my grandma and we would puzzle together and just talk about whatever it is that we wanted to share. And I really loved that, and I didn't mind the boring puzzles. Like right now, I think I'm really picky about what puzzles I do, but at the time, it was like that's what we had. And I really got into collecting 3D puzzles and putting those together for a time. But yeah, I was a quiet, more shy little girl, and so for me, having I had 4 brothers, and so having something that I could kind of escape to on my own that my brothers didn't do, that was quiet and I could like just let my imagination run wild while I did the puzzle was my favorite. I loved it as a kid. Yeah.
So, I think the question is, like, a lot of times I think we stop doing things that brought us a lot of joy when we're a kid, and you kind of don't notice that you've stopped. Did you have a moment when you sort of realized that you stopped or that you didn't do it anymore? And when did that happen?
Yeah. So I puzzled probably all the way up until my adulthood. And then I got married when I was 21. And throughout that marriage, there was abuse and domestic violence that happened within that, and I was struggling for it was a 10-year marriage, and so I even at the very beginning, I started to lose parts of myself, and I didn't notice what was happening. I knew things were wrong. I knew I wasn't myself. I wasn't as joyful, and I wasn't doing the things that I used to love doing. But I didn't care enough or have enough strength, I guess, to like figure out answers and to change that. I just kind of powered through and just like let myself get lost. And Wasn't until actually it's really interesting looking back because I remember about 5 years into that relationship, my brother bought me a puzzle for Christmas. And I remember opening the box and just kind of feeling numb, like, okay, I just got a puzzle. And then I almost was angry. Like I was almost like, why did he get me this puzzle? Like, doesn't he know me? I don't do puzzles anymore. That's not who I am. Of course, I didn't share that with him. I don't even think he knows that today. But I was really upset that he got me a puzzle and I ended up getting rid of it right away. And it's just interesting looking back. It actually makes me so sad to think about that's just how lost I was. That's how broken I was. That somebody that knew me, my brother, knew what I was like as a kid, and loved me and saw me, was giving me a gift that he knew was me. But I wasn't in a place where I could accept that or see that. I was broken. And so it's just interesting looking back and seeing how far removed I was from myself. And so fast forward, I decided to leave that relationship and move out. And with that, I became just, a lot of growth, a lot of healing, a lot of discovering myself again. And that was part of the reason why I bought that hard puzzle to do at Christmas before I opened up my Instagram account. Cause I was like, I'm going to do something that I used to love and see what happens because I know I used to love this. And I think that just kind of opened up this whole world for me, um, of finding joy again is something that was one of my biggest childhood joys. And that I'm not stuck in the past anymore, that it's not a silly childish thing to do puzzles. There's actually so many benefits to it that I can enjoy now. Um, Not only mentally, and emotionally, but like bonding with my kids over it because they actually really love puzzles as well. And so having that quality time with them to sit down and do a puzzle together. And then when you're sitting down and doing a puzzle, you're not having eye contact. It's not as like intense where you can kind of just freely talk about things. And so it's really fun to hear what they have to say when we sit down and puzzle together. But I think so beyond just having puzzles back in my life again, I think finding the puzzle community has also been really helpful and healing for me on this journey of escaping abuse because I lost my community. I lost a lot of close friends when I left. And that's something a lot of survivors experience is that loss of community. And so I think the puzzle community has just been so unexpected in their warmth and the welcome, um, them welcoming me in and encouraging me, and supporting me in pursuing like speed puzzling. But yeah, everyone is just so wonderful. And so I didn't know I needed that. I didn't know until I had it. I was like, okay, not only am I finding peace and joy by sitting down and doing a puzzle, but I'm also finding friendships and relationships and community with here on Instagram. Like, who knew? So that was a long-winded answer to that question. But there you go.
I think that, talking about the things that made us happy and reconnecting with ourselves is such a huge part of taking care of ourselves, right? And I'm wondering, how does now, I guess, like now that you're out of that and now that you have reconnected with yourself, like how is puzzling continuing in your life, be it daily, weekly, whatever, like how often are you doing a puzzle? How long are you taking that time to check in with yourself and see how you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like most puzzlers, I have about two or three or maybe five puzzles going on at one time. So I find myself doing a little bit of a puzzle, if not a whole entire puzzle every single day, because I have my puzzle shelves and I have a puzzle table set aside. I'm no longer at the dining room table, which does help. So I always have a puzzle out on the table, and if I don't have time that day to do a whole puzzle, I'll still sit down and do a couple pieces here and there. But yeah, I went from owning, less than 10 puzzles 2 years ago to now having, oh goodness, almost 500 puzzles, I think. And then just enjoying doing the new puzzles and finding the time to do it. And so I'm constantly doing puzzles. I don't know if there's a time that I'm not. Um, it's become part of my personality again.
I think one of the things that like we keep hearing too is, puzzles are a moment like you can't be on your phone and also puzzling. It forces you to take a moment and detach from work, from screens, etc. And I'm curious, has you've talked about puzzling sort of helping you be part of your healing journey, but how has it been too for your like is it important to your mental health? Is it something that's like part of your self-care? And if so, can you talk a little bit about that?
As a constantly overstimulated mom, I've realized that it's okay to take that time. It's okay to say, hey, I need a 10-minute break or I need a half an hour break. And I'm just going to go sit down and work on this puzzle. And we're going to have quiet or we're going to have music playing or listen to an audiobook. I've realized that that is vital for me to be a better mom and just a better human. And it's improving my quality of life because I'm getting the mental stimulation from the challenge of a puzzle, but I'm also doing something that I genuinely enjoy and love. And you get that boost from putting in each piece. I feel like it's definitely helps me, and I don't plan on stopping ever. I might, slow down here and there, but just I'm so grateful that I have an outlet like this that I can go to, um, that I can do by myself or with my kids or with other people, that's helping me heal.
Yeah, I think sometimes people feel like self care can be selfish, but I think really it makes you a more capable caretaker. Because if you're not taking care of your needs, you're not going to be able to be present for somebody else in the way that they need. And so I think having sort of these, I'll say like rituals or things that bring you joy, that allow you to unwind and relax have been and are really important. And speaking from a personal place, this week I lost somebody who was really important to me. And puzzling, I have started when I start to get really upset, take a breath, and I have a puzzle out, and have started to put pieces in, and that has really helped me connect with myself, what I'm feeling, and kind of work through these waves of grief that I'm experiencing. And so I think, yeah, using puzzles to heal, or using just things that bring us joy. And I'm going to talk a little bit too about, I'm not sure if there's anything else that you do to reconnect with your inner child. I am somebody who loves, for example, I love stickers. That was something I loved as a kid. And like art and coloring. And, at a certain point, it's like I stopped doing it because it wasn't a career option. And it was not, but it was fun and it brought me joy. And so, like, I have started to journal with stickers and draw pictures and doodle and get pretty markers. And it's just been something that is also, it's tactile. It really helps me reconnect with myself. So I'm curious, is there anything else that you found besides puzzling that you're doing as well to kind of foster that inner child and spark joy?
Yeah. Oh, I totally resonate with the sticker thing because I had a massive sticker collection when I was a kid. So that just made me smile. I'm like, oh, maybe I should get back into sticker collecting.
I'm not gonna lie, I was also I was a kid who had a sticker collection, and I was like, oh, I couldn't pop like this sticker's so rare, I couldn't possibly like use it. And now as a grown up, I'm like, I'm using stickers frivolously. Like I can buy more, I can do it. And it has brought me such joy. And there are so many fun sticker companies out there. So highly recommend for anyone else who had a sticker collection. But sorry, go ahead and continue.
I love it. No, that I'm gonna go get stickers after this for sure. But I also so two of my other big hobbies and passions. One of them is art. I love all things creative pursuits, crafting, sewing, crocheting, painting. I love I've always wanted to be an illustrator, like illustrate children's books, or just, I mean, eventually maybe even have my art on puzzles. And so that's something I like to do in my spare time. I think I've resorted to puzzling more than art right now, and so I'm like, okay, how can I like fit art back in my life, and enjoy it and not feel like burdened by it. And then the other thing I do on a weekly basis is I play volleyball. And I grew up being pretty athletic and playing a lot of sports, but then in your adult life, you don't have as much access to them. And then being a mom, soccer was my main sport, and I did try to play that a couple years ago, and I'm just so like off balanced, and I mean my mental capacity was there, but my physical was not keeping up, and I was just all over the field, and I was like, okay, soccer's not for me anymore. But I started playing volleyball, and that's something I do, if not once or twice a week, with my sister-in-law and some friends. And that's been incredibly therapeutic and healing for me as well, to just get out of the house, go do something for me, do something athletic. I'm sweating a lot. My heart rate is going up, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So, yeah, puzzling, volleyball, and art.
I love
That's it.
that. I think as a kid too, we are in some ways we're forced to try new activities because, like, I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but my mom was always signing me up for things, which
Yeah.
that's another story. But I do think that there is it's something important as you get older. You start to lose that adventurous spark, the idea that like I can try it. It's
Yeah.
I can put myself out there. I don't have to be afraid to
Mhm.
do something new. And for me,
Yeah.
I found climbing after
Mm.
yeah, and that was something, and I have to tell you, I mean, I played sports and everything, but I am not naturally athletic. I'm naturally clumsy. But you don't have to be good at these things. That is the thing. Like that is, I think, the joy of, and we're talking about reconnecting with your inner child. It's like when you're a kid, you don't do it because you feel like you're going to be the best at it or because you're going to be an Olympian. You do it because it's fun and you love it and it brings you joy. And I think as adults, there's so much, oh, but like, am I wasting time? And we put so much other meaning on the pursuits that we have. And
Yeah.
so this is a reminder to anyone who is listening to just kind of go for it. Give something a try, obviously, like within reason, like don't be unsafe. But yeah, like usually the worst, well, what's the worst that could happen is just like you realize, yeah, that's not for me, and you don't do it again. But
Yeah.
at least you've kind of gotten out of your comfort zone and done something new, which I think
Yeah.
really nicely brings us back to speed puzzling tournaments. So, can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about what you felt when you showed up at a speed puzzling at the nationals for like the first time? And you
Yeah.
mentioned that you were a little bit like nervous. Like, how did you work through all of that?
Yeah. I definitely was overwhelmed, showing up to nationals. There's a lot of people that come to nationals, so it's not like your cozy, um, small town puzzle competition. It's all the puzzlers that you have watched on YouTube and whatnot are there. And so I was definitely intimidated. I didn't know, how, if I was going to fit in, if I was going to be accepted. All those like weird thoughts that you think. You're like, oh, am I a fraud? Like, why am I here? But it wasn't like that at all. It was like immediate warmth and acceptance and excitement, and everyone's just caught up in the whirlwind of loving puzzles and cheering for each other. And so that became more of like the excitement for me. I lost the nerves, once we were there around everybody. It's like, okay, like we're all feeling it. We're all going to be nervous when we get that bag in front of us and don't know what kind of puzzle is there. But we're all in it together and it's fun. And so I think, yeah, I think that the pressure of being in front of, people that are watching, but then in a group of people that are puzzling, and then cameras everywhere, was just different for me. I haven't experienced that before. And so I tried to block that out, and I tried to imagine myself at home sitting at my table or standing at my table doing a puzzle, I try to imagine my kids watching me because they do, and they always have encouraging words to say. And so um, I think for me, especially, I think maybe for quite a few people, there's the natural skill that one can have with putting together a puzzle. But I think one of the biggest parts of speed puzzling is the mental part of it. And so that was something I was unprepared for going into nationals, was wrestling with the pressure, the doubts, the noises, whatever it is, the lights that was creating like uncertainty within me, and like, can I do this? Why am I here? Having to fight through those voices was the hardest part for me. And so I think experiencing it was good to know like this is what it's like. And I walked away from that saying, okay, either I can do it and I can wrestle with this mental stuff, or I say, this is not worth it because I don't want to lose my love of puzzling. I don't want to look at a puzzle and be like, ugh, why am I doing this? I want to truly enjoy it. And actually, that was something the Reuter sisters had told me at nationals. They're like, Jessica, like, you love puzzles. That's why you're here. You're doing it because you have loved puzzles your whole life. And so don't lose that. Like when you open up that puzzle and it's a competition and the clock is going, think about how much you love puzzling and like have fun. And so I tried to adapt that when I went in, but I was so nervous. But it's definitely stuck in my head since then in other competitions that I've done. And it definitely helps just to remind yourself, like, I'm here not to get first place or to like make a name for myself or anything like that. I'm here because I genuinely just love puzzling, and it's fun to challenge yourself to try to speed through a puzzle. Like it's a completely different type of puzzling than just casually putting in pieces. And so I like the challenge of that. I like to say, okay, like how can I strategize and put together this puzzle differently than I would if I was just sitting at home and had all the time in the world. So it's a mental game.
I think on that note, it's worth trying if you think you might like it. And at the same time, too, like I know myself and I don't see myself enjoying that. But I did have such a great time at nationals, and there's other things going on too. So if you are not wanting to speed puzzle, you can also, there's puzzle chess. There's honestly just people nerding out about puzzles, putting them together. And I don't know. I kind of think if you're looking to do something new, it's such a great, wholesome environment, for lack of like a better way to describe it. So I would encourage people, if they're, wanting to put themselves out there or at least take a chance, it's worth just seeing how you feel about it.
Yeah, you don't have to be the speediest person to go to these events, for sure. If you love puzzles and puzzle people, it's the perfect place to be.
We're going to pause the conversation for a moment and we'll be back after we highlight a member of the puzzle community who is a speed puzzling coach. Take a listen and we'll be back with Jess after this short break. It's time for Meet the Puzzler. A huge part of why we wanted to start this podcast is because when we're filming, we often meet a lot of people, but don't get the opportunity to get to know them. Today's puzzler is Amelia. She's been puzzling for 2 years, competing for one, and does around 14 puzzles per week as she's preparing for Worlds. Amelia, welcome to the Puzzle People Pod.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So it's interesting. Most of the people we speak with, they say, oh, I've been puzzling my whole life, or, I puzzled with my grandma, my mom, or my dad, and now, I'm puzzling. And for you, you said you picked it up 2 years ago. So tell me a little bit about why you started puzzling.
So just to kind of like clarify, I think like 3 puzzles as a kid that I can like remember. So that's why I kind of had the idea that I'm good with puzzles. So I was actually gifted some puzzles in May 2022. When you get a gift, you have to do it. And it was a stressful time with my work back then. So in the beginning, it was something to kind of just like relax and balance life. But then obviously I do have a sports background. So I have played in the national team of Finland. Now it's like 10 years ago. But I wasn't surprised that year after I kind of like went all in and now doing a lot of stuff and also, of course, competing.
I know in the States, we have a lot of sort of local, like if you're interested in speed puzzling before you go to Worlds or even Nationals, you can find an event near you. What's it like in Finland? What's the puzzling scene?
So I think now it's kind of like growing. I remember when I found about the worlds and I kind of like registered, but there was like no competitions to participate. It was like, okay, I'm just going straight to the worlds. But then I found like this Facebook group back then. It was just a private people fun group, and we had one online competition that I participated, and I did quite good. But now we actually have also association here. So we had our first nationals, and then of course there's all these online competitions in Europe that you can participate. So I feel like nowadays maybe even too much competing sometimes.
To that point, I saw on your Instagram that you're also a speed puzzle coach. So can you tell me a little bit about how you went from participating to also coaching?
So back in the time when I was an athlete, I was also coaching, and it's actually something I always loved. Um, and then this is actually when I started my YouTube. It was actually a little bit over a year ago, and I posted this kind of like a tips for speed puzzling, and I received an email from the president of our federation, Alfonso, saying that he has never seen somebody taking like this kind of perspective in the speed puzzling. And then I was like, okay, maybe I have something new to give to this sports and this community. And then I created my speed up speed puzzling program this year, which is actually going to be renewed today as we speak. And I'm also opening up for private coaching. So
Well, without ruining your entire like business and all of your giving away all of your secrets, can you give us at least maybe one tip for somebody who's looking to either get into speed puzzling or just to improve their time?
So I think the most important thing is that just like don't just do a puzzle after a puzzle and think that that's gonna do the trick. Like if you play any sports, you're like Olympic swimmer. I like to use this example. You don't just swim, swim, swim and get better. There's like a lot of different kind of practices, like doing smaller puzzles for speed, um, increasing your endurance by doing bigger puzzles, left hand practice, mystery puzzles, piece by piece practices. There's a lot of kind of like practices that you can do, but don't just do like 500 piece after another. Um, just do like wide range of puzzles and different kind of practices.
You also mentioned you have a YouTube. So are there tips on your YouTube as well?
Yes, so I have like public tips videos on my YouTube channel, and actually the speed up program is under my YouTube membership. So if you follow me on YouTube or subscribe, you will see the join button, and you can actually join from there. There is 3 different levels, and then my shop is gonna open. It's also gonna be showcased on my website, which is just puzzlewithamelia.com.
What is your favorite type of puzzle to do? Like when you're at a competition and you mentioned that you're training for Worlds, what's the kind of puzzle that you hope you're going to get?
I'm actually kind of hoping to get a harder puzzle. I think a lot of people want to have easier puzzle, but the issue with the easier puzzle is that it's easier for everybody. And then also the time differences are much smaller. They can be seconds, minutes. So you can be kind of like cut out by like literally 20 seconds. But when you have harder puzzles, the differences are bigger. And I feel like my head game is quite good. So I think I see a lot of with hard puzzles, for example, the pairs final puzzle last year, that people kind of in their head gave up a little bit and it turned into slow puzzling mode. So that's why I want to have a hard puzzle, because I know that in comparison to other fewer people, I do better.
What is the advice that you would give to somebody who's curious about doing a speed puzzle event, but maybe is a little intimidated because they just started or, they're not sure how fast they are and if they should be there? What advice would you give to somebody?
I mean, you should definitely just, participate, no matter like what, like how do you think your level is at that point? First of all, they're super fun. So even if you're not like competitive, it's like super fun to get to know people and get the experience. It's just different than, doing puzzles at home. And then like even if, and especially actually if you're competitive, like that's the best experience you can get. That's how you learn. And I know so many people who actually do like their best personal times first time in the competitions. So go for it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast. We will definitely be keeping an eye out for you at Worlds, and we'll update this podcast with the time you get. So good luck, and we hope to see you in person at some point. We are unsure if our film will take us to Worlds. We hope it will, but hopefully our paths cross. And either way, it was really nice getting to speak with you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
We're still new to this community, so if you or someone you know should be a Meet the Puzzler on our pod, send us a message or comment on Puzzle People Doc's Instagram. You can also DM us. And if you don't have Instagram, you can always send Ben an email at ben@chickenwingpictures.com. As a new speed puzzler, what is something that you have done, or is there something you've done with training that maybe somebody wouldn't think to do to help make you faster or even just feel more comfortable at an event?
Yeah, that is a great question. Um, what I have noticed is my back hurts really badly, and I know everybody else because you're bending over that table, it hurts. So I think I've actually started to walk every day. Not that that's building up my back strength, but I think it's just overall helping my body get stronger. But working on specific back exercises to build up strength. Even the top of your shoulders, I think for me, they get really sore. So that would be a great thing to work on is just finding good exercises to build up your back strength. Um, but something else that I don't know who it was that recommended it, but I've tried to do it. Like I think in general we all gravitate towards our favorite style of puzzles, whether it's colorful illustrations, photography, abstract, whatever it is. But with speed puzzling, you never know what you're going to get in a competition, and so it's really important to try to practice on puzzles that you wouldn't normally choose to do. The extra difficult ones, the boring, all brown or black and white, even challenge yourself to put those together and not avoid those because those may show up in competitions. Um, so that's something that I have done more recently, and I wouldn't recommend like buying those straight out. If you can swap with a friend or go to a puzzle swap or find them at a thrift store because you're going to be going through more puzzles that way and not having to break your bank buying brand new puzzles that you're not going to like love, love, love and want to keep. So that would be a tip that I would give is just don't always do your favorite type of images. And then I would say like one thing I really practiced right away was they recommend like to get your flip when you initially start and you flip over the pieces to get that under a certain amount of time. And so I spent some time just dumping out pieces and flipping and not even doing the puzzle and just trying to get my time under 3 minutes, which is that's really fast. So I would say for in general, try to get it under 5 minutes is a good starting point. If you can get your flip under 5, you're off to a great start. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm still learning. I'm still wanting to like soak in every bit of information from other speed puzzlers as well. And I feel like even the most elite speed puzzlers are always learning as well. It's like, oh, I didn't even think about doing that strategy or doing it this way. And so I feel like it's a learning process.
Definitely. I think those are great tips, though. You mentioned finding a puzzle swap near you, and I think that that's a great segue. We talked a tiny bit about how helpful community is and feeling a sense of community. And I think that what I've learned about the puzzle community is, first of all, it's all over, whether you're in the US, Europe, outside of Europe, like it's truly an international community that comes together over a love of puzzles at Worlds, but also, at various events, and you can find events in your area. Um, and I think, being able to meet other speed puzzlers is something that can be facilitated online too. So my last question for you before we say goodbye was there anybody that you met leading up to nationals over the internet that you got to meet in person, and what was that like?
You're gonna make me cry. Yes, yeah. I think I everybody that I've known on Instagram, I would love to meet in person, and so I think it's special no matter who it is. But there was a couple people in particular, Becca Taylor, jigsawologist, is someone that from the get go, when I started to post that I was speed puzzling, she was instantly like, "You got this. Your times are so good," and she like believed in me from the get go, even though I was like, "Oh, I don't know about this." And she sent me puzzles, so she sent me like giant boxes of puzzles to practice on, and I just knew she was like a kindred spirit and somebody I was really excited to meet. And she's just everything you can imagine and better in person. But yeah, her and Andrea Ping both kind of have, for lack of better words, like taken me under their wing. They have just like been motherly, wonderful friend figures, or motherly figures, I guess is how you say that, but friends at the same time because they're too young to be my mother. But they're two people that I was really happy to meet. And then oh man, there's so many names I don't want to leave people out, but like all of the like Sarah, Sarah does puzzles. I love her, and it was wonderful to meet her. Joyce, Joyce puzzles. I did get to meet Karen, and Karen was a huge part of the reason why I got back into puzzling because I ran into her YouTube videos, and I was like, oh my goodness, there's people nerding out about puzzles. Is this a thing again? And so I was happy to be able to meet her. But yeah, it's surprising because I wanted to meet so many people, but because of the busyness of the schedule and how many people there were so many people that I'm like, I didn't get to meet them. So I'm looking forward to more puzzling events where I can actually meet more of my friends and then also just hang out. We didn't stay at the place where National was. We stayed at Airbnb, and so I feel like I missed out on some like community parts of it. And so next time I'm definitely going to try to stay where it's happening so I can hang out with more people.
Perfect. Well, I think that's it. And last question, really this time, is do you have a favorite puzzle brand that we may not have heard of?
Oh, oh my goodness. Well, I do. I have quite a few favorite brands, but you can probably tell from I mean, people that are listening can't see, but I have an entire shelf behind me full of puzzles, and I have my favorite wooden puzzles over here, which are Wentworth. I love their puzzles. They're so beautiful. And then my favorite brand that I didn't know existed until I joined the puzzle community is Trevel, and they are based in France. I don't know if you've heard about them, but their artistic taste is like right down my alley. It is beautiful, colorful illustrations that are whimsical and wholesome, and just like bring out that happy little giddy child inside of me. And their quality of pieces is exceptional, and they are available through several retailers in North America. Puzzle Weekend, Puzzledly, and Rose Lily all sell their puzzles. So they're from France, but they're available here. And I will try to collect them all. And actually, I have all of their minis. They do 99-piece mini puzzles that are like in a cardboard box, like a card size box, and they're just adorable and so beautiful.
Well, I can't wait to check those out. You're going to have to email me the link, and then I'll put some links in when we post this. We'll have some links in the description and also on our Instagram because I definitely want to try it. I love the mini puzzle. It just is such a like wonderful experience for when you don't have a lot of time. Because I got to tell you, I have a hard time walking away from a puzzle. So I'm sure for those who understand, like the mini puzzle is a solve. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast. It was a pleasure to speak with you. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends. You can find us on Instagram at puzzlepeopledoc. And if you know someone who you think would make a great guest, reach out to us. And specifically Ben, who wasn't with us at this episode, but his email is ben@chickenwingpictures.com. And we'll look forward to speaking with you. Thank you again, Jessa.